Welcome all. So, in the previous class we were talking about the future value of an annuity, and we learned about that how to calculate the future value of an annuity, and there also we talked about that we have to use the concept of compounding. So, we saw it that when we go for compounding, and especially when the cash flow is is occurring at the end of the year. So, how to calculate it? There you have to be very careful that only compounding has to be done for 1 year lesser, right. Total time period is 5 years in this case, but since we are giving our money, we are making the investment at the end of the year. So, it means what is the total time available for the first investment? 4 years. So, second, third, fourth and fifth year. So, we will not be compounding it for 5 years, we will be compounding it for the 4 years. But yes, if we are giving the investment in the beginning of the year, then for calculating the future value of an annuity, you have to compound it for the compounding will done for the 5 years. So, that difference is that in the beginning we discussed that the timeline of the time value of money. So, when we were talking about that timeline, there it is very important that at what point, the point and the period, two important things, at what point we are making the investment and for what period we are making the investment. If we are making in the beginning of the year, then total point is the beginning of the year. So, it means every year we have got the full 5 years. So, it means the compounding of that will be done for a period of first amount which we are giving, that will be compound for 5 years, second for the 4 years, third for the 3 years, second for the 2 years, and the last one means the fourth one for the 2 years and the last one for the 1 year. But if it is being given, as in this case we have shown that we are giving this investment at the end of the year, it is clearly written that the investment is assuming that each deposit occurs at the end of the year. Then what we are doing here is this value we have calculated here is, that is 1464 is, that is by compounding at the rate of given rate of interest, and that rate of interest is 10%. So, we have compound this for a period of 4 years, this for 3 years, 2 years, 1 year and 0 years, right. So, this we have to be very careful about the timeline of the interest factors or for the compounding. Now, I was talking to you in the previous class that we will discuss some applications of the future value of an annuity. So, here are these are the very day to day decisions which we take in our life also, and we want to answer these questions, or we want the answer of these questions to ourselves also, not necessarily that we are a finance manager. We in the normal terms also we want the answers to these questions, and when we want the answers to these questions, so means it is very helpful in our day to day life also, in the corporate life also, or in any investment decision we get the answers to very relevant questions. For example, what lies in the store for you? This is the first application. How you can answer this question? Suppose you have decided to deposit 30,000 per year in your public provident fund, or anybody XYZ, any person has decided to deposit 30,000 rupees per year in his public provident fund account, PPF fund account, which is very common. We all make investment in the PP fund accounts or PPF accounts for a period of 30 years, or means we can decide this period depending upon our life and then the service and the income level. What will be the accumulated amount in your public provident fund account at the end of 30 years if the interest rate is 8%? If the interest rate is 8%, right. Now, how it has to be answered? How it has to be means solved, and how answer we have to get for this, because we have already got that future value interest factor annuity model. This model we have discussed here, this model is here. This model is already given. By applying this model here, simply we can get the answer to this question, and here it is, the accumulated sum will be how much? Rupees 30,000 and future value interest factor for annuity means, and one important point of caution here I would like to share with you. When you look for the future value interest factor tables, there will be 2 tables in every book. If you open Prasanna Chandra, Financial Management by Prasanna Chandra, the book which I am following here for all this discussion, if you open that book, at the end of the book 2 tables are given. One table is with the which is giving you the FVIF, future value interest factor. Future value interest factor, if you see that interest factor, that is only for a single amount. But if you want to find out the future value interest factor for an annuity, then there is another table which is called as future value FVIFA. So, you have to refer to that table because models are different. So, values are going to be different. So, the say interest factors are also going to be different. So, be careful, there is one table which is called as the FBIF table and another is called as the FBIFA table. So, for the different purpose, if it is a single amount, then you see refer to the FBIF table, but if it is the annuity amount, you refer to the FBIFA table. In every book of financial management, two tables are given. So, for the annuity it is different and for the single amount it is different. So, look for the right interest factor, or if you want to apply the model here, we have seen the model. So, here what is this 1 plus r power 30, number of years is 30 minus 1 and divided by the interest rate. What we are expecting the interest rate? These days roughly the interest rate on the PPF account is 7.8 or we are assuming it as a 8%. So, if you with the help of this model, if you want to calculate this rate of interest, this works out as something that 30,000 multiplied by this interest factor PBIFA factor, and this amount becomes as 33 lakhs 98,498. This is the total amount which will be becoming. So, it means whatever the total return I am going to get back is this total return is going to be there with the help of this. When we are investing a certain sum of money, rate of interest has come down to 8%, period is 30 years. So, what we are giving is this amount we are not giving, say for example, period of 30 years and this amount is 30,000. This amount works out as to be how much? 9 lakh rupees. So, this 9 lakh rupees we are not giving in one go. This amount we are giving in how many? This amount we are giving in 30 installments. This amount we are giving to the fund in 30 installments for a period of 30 years, 30,000 rupees invested, and the rate of interest we are expecting is, if it is 8%, then how much this amount will become. So, this is basically you have to calculate with the help of the present future value interest factor for annuity process, and there you can apply the model also, you can put the values in the model, but for the simplified purpose you put this amount and apply it by the interest factor, and the interest factor if you look at in the table, that interest factor becomes as 113.283 and total amount becomes as 33 lakh 98,490, right. So, this is one very important question which we can answer with the help of the future value interest factor for annuity process. Then second important question, second important application of the say future value of annuity, and here is again a very interesting question. How much should you save annually for a particular purpose? You want to achieve one particular purpose, and to achieve that particular purpose how much should you save annually? This is our question. Now, what is the question? You want to buy a house after 5 years, or I want to buy a house after 5 years, when it is expected to cost me 20 lakh rupees or 2 million rupees. After 5 years I want to buy a house, I know that what are the prices of the houses in the market today. I am planning to buy a house after 5 years, because today I do not have the money to invest in that say investment, that purpose. So, I will have the sufficient amount of the money, or sometime it may be possible I do not require a house today, I will be requiring the house 5 years from now. So, after 5 years when I want to buy a house, that house will cost me, expected to cost me for 2 million rupees or 20 lakh rupees, right. How much should you save, how much should I save annually if my savings or your savings earn a compound return of 12%? Interesting question. How much should you save, or how much should I save annually if my savings or your savings earn a compound interest of compound return of 12%? How much should I save, right? Now, the future value interest factor for a period of 5 years annuity we have to apply here, because we want to find out that amount, one single amount which I want to save annually. Every year I want, constantly I want to save the same amount. So, amount will remain consistent, amount will remain the same. So, if I want to save that amount, the future value interest factor for a 5 years annuity and at the given rate of interest of 12% we have to calculate. at the given rate of interest of 12% we have to calculate. So, we are applying the concept of future value interest factor for annuity, number of years n is 5 and then r is 12%, number of years is 5, r is 12%, and then if you apply this again the same thing is coming, again the same model we are applying, this model we are applying here. So, when you apply this model, so you are getting this, and this is the 1 plus 0.12 power 5 minus 1 divided by 12% rate of interest, and this factor comes up with this. This factor comes up with this, that is 6.353. If you go to the table future value interest factor for annuity table in any book, then you will find this factor is there. This factor is already calculated there, provided your number of years, means for different number of years you will find it out 1, 2, maybe next 20, 30 years the factors are given, and the for the different rates of interest 2, 4, 5, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So, 12 is covered, and normally which are the prevalent rates of interest in the market, for that the interest factors are there given in these tables. So, if you find this factor, we have calculated this factor ourselves here. We have calculated this factor ourselves here, but you can find it directly from the interest factor table also, and you can find out the total amount, but that is 20 lakhs, 2 millions we want to save, I want to have, means in my hands after 5 years. So, dividing it by this factor, it means this amount comes up as how much? This works out as 314,812. 3,14,812 rupees I have to save annually. I have to save annually to have a house after 5 years, which will cost me a sum of rupees 2 millions or 20 lakhs. Interesting. So, it is a very important question which we can answer. In the previous case, what we wanted to find out, that what lies in store for me if I save a certain same amount 30,000 rupees every year for a period of 30 years, and the rate of interest is 8%. This is a question. In this case we answered how much should you save annually to achieve one particular objective, provided you know that means the cost of that objective and the rate of interest available on our investment. You can easily answer this question, and this question is going to help us to find out that if you want to find a house of 20 lakh rupees, you can save annually 3,14,812 rupees, and after 5 years if you earn the interest of 12% on your, that is a precondition, be careful that whatever the amount you are saving here 3,14,812, that should earn a minimum rate of interest of 12%. If it earns a 12%, then certainly this amount will become 20 lakhs or 2 millions at the end of the 5 years. Next question is annual deposit in a sinking fund. Annual deposit in a sinking fund. Now, what happens? Many a times this problem comes to the companies which in the corporate life this question is more relevant, right, because companies confront the problems like that when they borrow money from the market, say for example in the form of the bonds or debentures. When the bonds are issued in the market or debentures are issued in the market, then these bonds or debentures are issued by the companies for a certain stipulated period of time, for example 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, right. After 10 years those bonds have to be redeemed by the companies. Those bonds have to be redeemed by the companies, means bonds have to be bought back, and the investment made by the say buyers of the bonds has to be returned back with the interest. Normally if it is the different options are given by the companies, but if people choose to the cumulative interest option, then people do not prefer to get the interest annually back on that investment, but they choose to the option that at the end of the say at the time when these bonds will be redeemed, I would like to get that principal amount along with the interest, right. So, for that what has to be there, because company knows that we have to return back after 5 years or after 10 years a sum of rupees 5 million, 50 lakh rupees which we have borrowed from the market. So, it means if you immediately at the end of the 5th year or at the end of the 10th year, you have to arrange a sum of rupees 50 lakhs, it may not be possible for the companies, that amount is not available. So, they plan it that every year they keep on depositing something in some fund which is called as a sinking fund. They keep on depositing, either they buy some say investment product. So, they keep on depositing that money equal amount of sum in that say investment account or in that investment product, or within the firm if they use the funds, then they keep a proper account of that and they provide every year the interest on that. So, money keep on accumulating in that account. They use that money internally, but they create a proper account and they know it that after 5 years or after 10 years when we have to return 50 lakh rupees back with the interest. So, it means we need the money. So, they have already created a sinking fund where they are annually saving certain amount. So, that amount becomes that amount in that fund at the end of that period becomes 50 lakhs plus interest on that equivalent to the same amount. So, that you liquidate the fund at that time and then easily that liability can be paid off, right. Second situation can be that in case of the say replacement of the fixed assets. For example, there is a plant which is purchased by the company, they are using it and the life of the plant is for example 10 years and say the cost of the plant is say 1 crore, say 10 million rupees. So, the total life of the this plant is 1 crore rupees. You know that the life of the plant is 10 years only and after 10 years we have to replace this existing plant with the new plant or the existing machinery with the new machinery. So, we have to be very careful that we have to means we know the process of depreciation. Every year we charge the depreciation on the existing plant of that investment of 1 crore rupees at certain say given method of depreciation. We debit with that amount of depreciation every year the profit and loss account, and then from the profit and loss account, because since it is a non cash expense, so that money does not go anywhere, that is taken out from the profit and loss account and is kept safe. So, that kept safe is that can be invested in some fund and that fund is also called as the sinking fund. At the end of the 10 year when this asset will become the value useful life of that plant will become 0 or that plant will become unusable. So, we will have to replace it at that time. So, we have collected the sufficient amount through the process of depreciation. So, and we are depositing that depreciation amount in some sinking fund account. So, we will sell off that sinking fund at that time, we will liquidate the sinking fund at that time. So, entire 1 crore plus interest on that will come back to us and probably that will be the price of the new plant along with the say the basic amount of the 1 crore plus increase in the price because of the inflation, right. So, means the company is at a very comfortable position. So, maybe in case of the redemption of the bonds or debentures or for the replacement of the existing plant and machinery, the firms require funds in the lump sum after a certain at the end of certain period of time, and at that time the funds may not be available. So, they planned the things in such a way in advance that when that replacement or requirement of the fund arises, then they have already collected the fund by setting aside certain amount every year plus interest on that at the end of that period that fund is liquidated and we get the funds readily available in our hands. So, here is the question, annual deposit in a sinking fund. For example, you want to say replace a plant of 1 crore rupees for creating a sinking fund, how much amount you have annually to deposit in that, so that at the end of 10 years it becomes say the same amount 1 crore plus interest and that may be the same amount which is the price of the plant at that time in the market. Here it is, Futura Limited has an obligation to redeem 500 million bonds, 500 million 6 year 500 million bonds 6 years hence, right. Futura Limited has an obligation to redeem 500 million bonds 6 years hence. How much should the company deposit annually in a sinking fund account wherein it earns 14% interest to accumulate rupees 5 million in 6 years time, right. They have to return the 5 million rupees, these are the bonds issued, that amount may become the total amount, that is the say principal plus interest, or it may be possible the company is paying the interest annually from the revenue incomes, and the principal amount of 500 millions will be paid back after 6 years, right. How much should the company deposit annually in a sinking fund? Now they know it that this liability will arise at the end of the 6th year. So we should be planned enough in advance, we should be knowing that we have to create a fund, so that every year from the profits we are earning, when we are apportioning that profits, distributing that profits, we will have to set aside certain amount, so that we are safe, that at the time when the requirement of the funds arises, we are very safe at that time, because we have made the proper arrangement for the funds in the beginning. You can call it as the financial planning also, it is a part of the financial planning. So we are financially very planned, we have done this financial planning beforehand, and now we are very safe and secured. So after the 6 years, at the end of the 6 years, when 500 million rupees will be required to be paid back to the bond subscribers, right. So in 6 years period of time, that how much the company has to save. It means the question is how much should the company deposit annually or save annually in a sinking fund account, wherein it earns 14% interest to accumulate rupees 500 million in 6 years period of time. So it means one condition here is interest is 14%. Interest is 14%. So we have to be very careful what is the rate of interest, because the moment the rate of interest changes, your installment to be deposited in the sinking fund will change. So we apply the same concept of the future value of annuity, because we want to find out the same amount to be deposited every year in the sinking fund account. So if you apply here the future value interest factor for a 5 years annuity, given an interest at the an interest rate of the 14% is, you can calculate here is, that is, so it means when we are making the investment here, what is the total period? 6 years, but we are assuming here, because we are writing here 5 years annuity. 5 years annuity means every year when we will transfer the investment to sinking fund, that will be invested at the end of the year. So at the end of the first year, you will transfer some amount, at the end of the second year you will transfer some amount. So at the end of the 6th year also you will transfer some amount. So we are going to create the interest factor for a period of 5 years, not for a period of 6 years. So it means when you are going to create this annuity for 5 years, we are going to find out here, that is the future value interest factor, and N is 6 years, R is the 14%, and when you are applying this model here, you are getting a factor here. When you are getting the factor here 8.536, this factor is coming up simply as we did it in the previous problem, that you got this factor for a period of 6 years, we have charged the interest because the amount of the funds will be available. We are liquidating this annuity at the end of the 6th year, we will be liquidating it. So we will be calculating this for the period of 6 years. So it means if you try to find out, this factor has come with us, and if you divide the 500 millions with this factor, so it means this amount comes up as how much? 58.575 million rupees you have to save to collect a total amount of the 500 million rupees. Annually this amount has to go to the sinking fund, 58.575 million has to go to a sinking fund, so that at the end of the period of 6 years this amount becomes, and the rate of interest we have already factored. We have already factored this. So we have calculated this factor, future value interest factor we have already calculated. So rate of interest is already taken care of. So now you have to save rupees 58.575 million every year and transfer it to the sinking fund, so that at the end of the 6 years, when there will be the need for the 500 million rupees for the redemption of these bonds or whatever the obligations of the different bond subscribers is, this money is readily available with us. So very interesting question, that whether it is a redemption of the bonds, whether it is a replacement of the plant or machinery, or whether it is any kind of other kind of the fund you require, we should be planned enough in the beginning, so that we know that some financial requirement is going to arise say 5 years from now, or maybe 10 years down the line. So we should be very clear about that, we should be well planned in the beginning, and if we know that this much is going to be our requirement, if we keep on setting aside certain amount every year, and plus we know the interest we are going to earn on that fund every year, then I think we are at a very safer position. So, it does not put any pressure in the mind of the CFO, or maybe in case of the individual investors, in the mind of the individual investors, that he has already planned for his future, and what is now is going to be his financial requirement. Every year he is setting aside a certain amount. So, he will have the sufficient amount at the end of the given amount of the period or the number of years. So, now there are some other kind of the say applications also. So, for example, finding the interest rate, or maybe some other say how long should I wait, or maybe there are some other important questions are there also, which we can answer with the help of your this future value interest factor for annuity. So, means we have discussed some 2-3 applications till now. Say 3 applications we have discussed today in this class, and remaining applications plus some other related concepts of the time value of money I would discuss with you in the next class. For this class I will stop it here, and thank you very much.